Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is the remnants of a large branch off of my Red Haven peach tree. And as you can see, I only have one Red Haven peach tree left because I removed one last year. I think I removed it in the fall. And the reason is it has a lot of problems with disease. And although initially when I purchased these did not have any problems and I had a lot of success with some great looking peaches, it's not the case now. Last year I had no peaches because they were just really infected with worms. And I cut this branch off initially, I think, with in the back of my mind thinking I'd go further and take it completely down, but stop myself. There's all types of diseases, especially the oriental fruit moth. And unless you keep up with a rigorous schedule of spraying, there's just all types of diseases. And the fruit moth, it's really, the peaches are just ugly and not edible. And they ooze. One of the things that peach trees do is they ooze all this gelatin. And look at all the deformed, those are all indications of the oriental fruit moth boring into the peach. And also what peaches do is peach tree borers, and they also, if the ground is too wet, they tend to ooze out this gelatinous material. And I guess one of the things you're supposed to do is keep the ground free of vegetation around the base there to help the soil dry out quicker. And again, these, at least in the early stages, they did great in the barrels, as I can attest to from some previous videos. And like I said, you really have to keep up the spraying. I think initially when you buy a peach tree, if you don't have any of these diseases, you know, you don't have any problem. And then what happens is once you get the disease, unless you're very strict with, you know, pruning off diseased material, discarding the material, either burning it or removing it from the property, you now have that cycle located on your property, the life cycle of that disease. So it immediately starts off, you know, coming spring and through the summer, and then, you know, hibernating in the soil or in diseased parts of the tree for the winter and starting all over again. So they have a quick start and the disease has set in to your property. Whereas before, you know, it might not, unless it's been in a neighbor's yard already, it's going to take a while maybe for the disease to finally show up and set foot in your property. So unless I'm looking for just a nice shade tree, this takes up a lot of space, and I'm not going to be getting anything from it again unless I really start spraying this with who knows what, you know, and how successful that's going to be. You know, dormancy sprays and then whatever you need to spray first thing in the spring. But all the peaches look like the peach that I just showed you. Another indication is, although I don't have much, no, I do, is once you have the oriental fruit moth, the peaches start to drop also. So all the peaches look like this, and there'll be worms in them if they do mature. So I'll be taking this tree down. I think I want to concentrate on berries, on you know, types of fruit that require a lot less work. I don't want to have to be constantly spraying. I did notice there really weren't a lot of bees this year. I mean, usually you see honeybees, at least if the remaining love clover. They're not even on the clover. So I have some clover weeds in the grass here. And the only thing that's still hanging out, I pulled out here, is I guess these hardy bumblebees and the mason bees. Good to see a lot of mason bees. So once I have a fruit tree infected, I think they are also From there they jump onto this Golden Delicious apple tree, which has a lot of these marks here, which I think is where the fruit moth has burrowed in. So I think I'm going to thin this out. This is a good pollinator for the Fuji apple tree. So I don't know. I know one year the Golden Delicious apples that I had a lot of worms in them, but it wasn't the case for the Fuji apple tree. I did spray a little this spring from what I had, and looks like that was not enough. And I've also removed a Bartlett pear tree. There were absolutely no pears this year, and I did have pears. It does produce pears, or it's supposed to produce some pears even if you don't have a pollinator, but you get a heavier fruit set when you do have a pollinator. And maybe there used to be one in the neighborhood and there is not anymore. I did not have any. And the gypsy moth caterpillars really shredded all the leaves this spring too. This was a weak grower. The roots never really seemed to set in, and this thing really would rock in a light breeze. And I did have a systemic insecticide that I applied a couple of years ago. I thought I had some type of canker here, but it seemed to be healing up. But I decided to take this down. It was too close to the house, and it really didn't get sun until maybe 12 o'clock. So I've taken that down too. And I might eventually remove this Fuji apple tree and put a replacement someplace else. Maybe get into doing some type of espalier type of experiments with some fruit trees, so you have a lot less vegetation that you have to worry about spraying. Something nice and controlled growth, and very select apples that you can protect and concentrate on as a challenge, instead of just these trees that get out of hand and really end up becoming something that takes up a lot of space, and really you in the long run end up not producing anything. So I think I'm going to be changing my philosophy here. Like I said, concentrating on maybe some berries. As far as I can tell, blueberries are a hands-off type of producer, other than things munching on the leaves and critters and trying to protect your berries and keep the soil acidic. And you've got a nice crop of blueberries. So I think I'll be concentrating on some rows of blueberries also. I did thin out this Fuji apple tree. Well, I pruned it last year, tried to open up the middle, but really doesn't have an open pruning concept yet. Let's take a look at the apples on that. So I don't know if it's just a thicker skin maybe on Fuji apple trees, but they seem to not be as infected, even when the Golden Delicious has a lot of worms in them. So there are a lot of fruit this year. If you can recall, last year, no apples whatsoever. We had a late frost when this was in full bloom, and it just killed all the blossoms. So I have a lot of dots, it looks like, on these apples, but there are some that look kind of clean. But again, it's amazing. We don't give it much thought when we see the produce in the grocery store. It takes a lot to get that to market, and a lot of people want to ban insecticides, and there's two sides to that. There's just a lot of things that attack produce, and to get it to market, it's a lot of work. It's not just something you set it and forget it. See some raspberries there. Is that Anne, I think? Anne raspberries, Annie. Those are very good. And I have the pot in there somewhere where it's just grown through the pot. But the runners have come out from those initial roots. So I need to clean this up because they got them running all over the place. We had a good rain yesterday. So this is New England Gardening. Just to update on the fruit and some decision I'm making on these fruit trees.